And the thing that we know from positive psychology that we didn't know even 15 years ago is we can identify these things, we know the components, we know how they relate to behavior and to what's going to happen down the road, and we know how to change them. We know ways that we can work with people on explanatory style or on gratitude or on forgiveness, on other kinds of things that will create different ways of being for themselves and in their relationships with others. And my belief is, and the data seems to suggest, that doing that, if we can tip the profession towards that more positive approach, what might emerge would be some ways of serving society and serving our clients that we're not even coming close to right now. So it's not just about, when I speak about CLE things, I say, I'm not here because I want you to feel better. I wouldn't be giving it CLE credit, and my commission wouldn't be just to make you feel better. That's not what this is all about. It's about helping you function better as a lawyer and helping our profession function better in the world. There's the relative intelligence level of attorneys works against us also. So Carol Dweck, she was at Columbia for many years, she's now at Stanford. But early in her career, when she read some of Marty Seligman's early work about attributional style, and this sparked her thinking, and she's gone on from there to work with a construct she calls it, technically she calls it self-theories. When she writes popular books about it, it's called mindsets. But here's the way it plays out. And what she saw at Columbia was that she had, of course, you don't have any not bright kids at Columbia. And she said she saw that her students, the work was tough, and sometimes they weren't all that interested in doing it in the first place, and it kind of piled up over the semester, and it got to be a drag. And she said, but she noticed that some kids, it would pile up, and they would stop exercising, they would stop getting enough rest, they would stop, those kind, and then they'd stop coming to class, and then in too many cases, they kind of stopped doing everything, and by the time anybody found out about it, it was too late to salvage the semester for them. Other kids, though, when she would talk to them, she'd say, well, how is it for you? I'm overwhelmed. This is hard work. I don't like all of it. I've got to do more than I want to. It's really tough. She says, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm getting up. I'm going to class. I'm trying to get some exercise, trying to get enough sleep, just kind of hanging in there with it. And as she talked to them about that, what she began to pick up was a difference in how they thought about what it means to be smart. And so she dug into this, and she came up, and really intelligence was the first area she looked at, but it turns out to apply to character, it turns out to apply to how we think about relationship skills, to all kinds of things. But just stay in the intelligence field with attorneys. If an individual thinks, this doesn't have anything to do with their IQ, and there is such a thing as IQ, I'm not suggesting that there are not differences in how fast people assimilate information or how quick they are to make connections or anything like that. But if an individual thinks that smart is something I am, it's a quantity I have inside of me, and that as a result I can do things easily that are hard for other people, which is an easy idea to get when you're a little above average intelligence and you're going through elementary school and your teachers say, oh, you're so smart, you did that perfectly, so perfect becomes a part of being smart. They become what she calls entity theorists, so they believe it's who I am. And I can't see it. And the only reason I really know I'm smart is because of the signals I'm receiving from the universe of people saying, oh, you're smart, that was so easy, you did that perfectly. And so the day's going to come when I'm not going to be smart enough. When the universe is going to send me the signal that that's it, that's all you got, it's done. And once that happens, it's about who you are. It's about whether you've got it inside of you. And if you don't, then there's nothing you can do about it. You can't work harder and overcome it. You can't change your strategy. You're just done. And so when that day comes, I need to be aware of it. I need to quit quick. And I need to pretend I wasn't trying, because there's nothing I can do about it. I need to make sure nobody knows that I'm not smart enough any longer. And Dweck will say that out of her research, there's a known drop-off in the performance, academic performance of girls between elementary school and middle school. She says much of that can be accounted for bright girls who did flawlessly in elementary school and who were always told how smart they were. And they get to middle school and they make their first B in math and they quit. And I can't tell you how many times I've told this story and had people come back after and say, I exactly know what you're talking about. I remember the day when that happened. And that's just it. It's a B on a quiz. It's not failing a course. It's any signal from the universe, I gotta quit before anybody knows. Guys tend to be protected against this because we misbehave in elementary school. So what happens is that in Dweck's research, it's very common for teachers. The girl's been working with the program. She's been paying attention, she hadn't been disrupting, she hadn't been doing all these things, so when she makes a good grade, the teachers tend to see us, you know, Jane, I'm sorry, I know you really tried as hard as you could. Uh-oh, she's telling me I'm right. This is about I'm not smart enough. Whereas Johnny was probably disrupting the class part of the time, especially if he wasn't getting all of it. And she said, Johnny, I told you if you didn't settle down and work at this stuff, you weren't going to be able to do it. Message to Johnny, work harder, and you can do this. So that tips Johnny towards a growth mindset that says smart is about what you know, and you can always gain more knowledge. It's about how hard you work, you can always work harder, and it's about what strategies you use. And you can always develop new strategies for how you, so my smart is essentially unlimited. Whatever I'm interested in, I can probably learn because I can get smarter. And in fact, that's if you look at some of the great teachers, that's what they teach kids. And we know, to go back again to something I brought up earlier, we know, for example, that from the value-added data here in Tennessee, and this was a real shock when it first came out, nobody believed it, but it's been validated now a number of times in other studies. There are some teachers who are just get amazing results out of kids, and there are some teachers who don't. And it doesn't matter about the kids, their socioeconomic class, some can do it, some don't. But the interesting thing is that a kid who goes through a highly effective teacher's classroom, you see results in that kid's learning regardless of what teachers they get thereafter for at least 3 years after they leave that classroom. What's going on with that? They're not in her room, she's not doing, well, one theory that I have is that if that teacher tipped them towards a growth mindset about intelligence, you would expect to see continuing results. Because once they've got that idea, they're probably not going to let go of it. And they're going to continue to work harder, they're going to continue to persist in what they do. This is going to make for better performance in schools. So lawyers do come through this process. And Carol Dweck says that when she got into this, she said, I was a tenured professor in an Ivy League college. I was still waiting for the universe to send me that signal. I wasn't smart enough. So it's not like you ever get to where you're not going to have that signal. You know, it's if you're of an entity mindset, it doesn't matter how much you've achieved in the past, you're still waiting for, oh, I'm not that smart. So you can come through law school and make law review and do all these kind of things, and you say, yeah, that was law school. That wasn't real life. And so the first hint that you're not doing it out in law, oh, I can't do that. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's lawyers do have that, and we don't have any data on it. The data from Carol Dweck is that in ordinary populations, about 40 to 45% of people have a growth view of one degree or another. About 40 to 45% have a fixed view. 10 to 15% are sort of in the middle, you can't tell. It may be that lawyers are tipped, along with their pessimism, are tipped a little bit more towards this fixed mindset. Again, very changeable. This is highly, there are easy ways, in fact, I've just changed your view about it by telling you about it. One of the things that Dweck says is once you explain this to people, they start to say, oh, I don't want to think that way. And they start to change. You can change them by stories. You can change them by teaching about neuroplasticity, how the brain rewires itself over time. There are several ways in how you praise people. So one of the keys is instead of giving person praise, you give process praise. Instead of telling the kid's so smart, or telling a young associate, you know, whatever. You notice how they did it. You notice what went into doing it, and you talk about the steps they took to get there. And recognize that and then say, oh, okay, well, I can take those steps. Yeah, in fact, I can do a few more along the way, and they get there. So yeah, I think it is true that on top of everything else, there's some general things in society not tied to the uniqueness of the practice of law and the role we play in dispute resolution for society that affects how some of the problems that we tend to deal with when we hit the productive years as lawyers.